Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope.
The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything.
You are now listening to Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, the voice for the people. Join Richie alongside co-host property damage attorney Hans Kennon as they bring light to the taboo world of big insurance companies, exposing their tactics and fighting for justice. Hear stories from contractors across the state. Contractor Talk, here to protect homeowners and uncover the truth.
All right. Welcome to the show, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Are we on? Are we good? All right. Look, I love live radio for this reason right here. Gotta love it. All right. So, yes, tonight there we go. I'm getting some volume now. All right. So, here we go. I'm just turning on the cans for the first time in this new room here. So 94.9 FM is our new radio dial. It's our second week here. It's super excited to be here. I'm your host, Richie Kidwell. We have Hans Kennon with Kennon Law. What's going on, man?
Hey, glad to be back for our second week. As you know, we've done this for many years and made a move to another station, and so I'm looking forward to this. It looks like it's going to be a good place for us.
Absolutely. And I'm excited for this because not only do we have we have the ability to be live on air, and we can field your questions, phone calls on live time. And we were bouncing back and forth with live radio over the years, a weekend show, different radio dials, and then went straight podcast. I love that we can cuss a lot and say whatever we want, but I love also the live interaction. And so speaking of, we have a live call-in number here. It's 407-774-TALK. That's 774-8255. So if you're in the listening area, 94.9 FM or 950 AM, you can listen to us every Monday night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. So don't miss a show. And if you do miss a live show, then you can go to our Spotify page. If you have Spotify, everybody has Spotify nowadays. Yeah. Or to YouTube, and you can find us there, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. All of our episodes over the years are there for you to listen to. Any types of show, you can search for the topic that we're talking about. A lot of things are surrounding around not only contractor rights, consumer rights, because as we found that over the years that our contractor rights are only as good as consumer rights, as a lot of that transfers over to the contractor. We've had a lot of law changes over the years here in the state of Florida since I keep calling him Dick Santis, mostly for dictatorship, and he's been a dick lately. Let's just be honest. I've never seen a governor go from my favorite governor list, right? So giving us through COVID, keeping our small businesses open, to then being bought out by the quote unquote crisis or the insurance crisis, for them to poop out $100 million really quick during the middle of a quote unquote crisis to our governor who's running for president. I mean, that just goes to show right there. Immediately, we had 4 special sessions that slowly chiseled away the rights of consumers, contractors. First, they started with contractors. Over the years, it's been a thing, right? Every time insurance premiums go skyrocket, they point a finger at somebody. And that over the years ended up being our group. Before that, it was the sinkhole debacle of 2013 where they changed the law because of rising premiums due to sinkholes. And apparently it's the sinkhole guy's problem, whatever. And then they blindly just signed a bill there to stop everything and make it so difficult for you to file these claims. And then the next year, they said, well, we got to raise premiums again. This time it was the restoration contractors. In 2014 is when the Restoration Association of Florida was founded. It now has hundreds of members that are the owners of restoration contractors around the state who unify, who have thousands of folks that they feed every day, and their lives depend on the laws that we have here and the business we have here in the state of Florida. So if you remember, starting in the end of 2022, we had our first special session. That's before the seats changed. And that's when they took away prevailing party attorney's fees for AOB contractors, and that's assignment of benefits in only the property world. And then when the seats change, that's all they can get away with. And here we are in December rather, another major event happens, another 1 week special session, where it ended with just result of really killing a lot of rights that we have for consumers and for contractors that use this tool, the assignment of benefits, to be able to help homeowners, consumers who in their one time of need, they file a claim, maybe after a hurricane or a special event that they're not saving up for. Now they're not able to assign their benefits to a company that will put them back to a good spot, all the way up to removing mold, getting mold free out of their home, getting certificate of clearance right before the build back begins. We can get that consumer there normally on an assignment of benefits. So we'll find contractors that will take that work on this assignment of benefits, bill the insurance company, and get paid later on. And so what a great tool to have, especially if you don't have the money to do so. And then on top of that, they took away attorney's fees for the consumer after that in the next session thereafter. So it was a heck of a year for sure, 2022 to 2023. And before that, Senate Bill 76, when, of course, at that point, it was the roofers and attorneys. Apparently you were in that group that were making premiums rise. What say you about that?
Well, I think what the insurance company is really looking for is they want the consumer to be as unsophisticated as possible, have the inability to obtain sophisticated help, whether it be from a contractor, from an attorney, from anyone who might have greater knowledge. The insurance industry really tries to strike them down and make it where it's economically unfeasible for the consumer to hire someone on an hourly basis. Prior to basically December of 2022, a client could come to me and I could obtain the benefits they deserve and get paid by the insurance company in addition to what the client was owed, which is really the fairest thing. If the insurance company denies the claim and I'm able to obtain the benefits that the client needs, the client should not be forced to pay me out of their pocket. These cases are economic cases. They have no the personal injury aspects to them. So if you need $10,000 to fix your house, and they pay you 10 and I take 3,000 of that, you're still short. And that was the fairness of the system before, is that it allowed that the insurer who wrongfully denied a claim had to pay the price for doing so, which in theory would cause them to do the right thing the next time, which we know they don't always do. But again, really for me, it's an attempt to strip the consumer of assistance when they need it the most.
Right, and over the years, we would say that there's a new boogeyman. Every year, there's a new person to point out or group to point out, other than themselves, terrible business practices and handlings, which we find out now. There is a law that says that after a certain amount of time that a insurance company in the state of Florida goes out of business, that there's a quote-unquote autopsy being done on that company to find out why it went out of business. And majority of the time, as you know,
sure,
it was horrible business practices, bad business practices. They fight tooth and nail to take a consumer to the mat to not pay them. So much so that they were getting fined, getting hit for bad faith, such like that they would the cost that they incurred was ultimately what sunk the ship.
Oh yeah, I mean we certainly saw that, and the autopsies were very slow in coming. I believe the one for Sun State was like 2016, and I think they first turned the report over to the Senate or the House like in 2021 or 22, and most of those folks said they didn't know, they'd never seen the report before, but again, it was all mismanagement. It was the shifting of good policies to a new company and really sticking the consumer with the bad, or sticking the consumer with the cost of the bad policies. When an insurer goes bankrupt, it goes to FIGA, the Florida Insurance Guarantee Association. So the insurer literally would take all the good policies, put them in a lifeboat, ship them over to the company that they wanted to keep, then simply sink the other one and leave the consumer holding the bag. Because on the declaration sheet, when you get your documents in, if you look at the back, usually the back, second to bottom line, everybody pays for FIGA. All of us contribute some amount of money per policy period to help fund essentially the safety net for folks who are stuck when an insurer goes out of business. So we pay all the bailouts. They make it sound like it's all of someone else's problem, but we certainly have seen over time that the insurers have trouble with management, and some are simply just too underfunded to survive. I mean, in normal life, really, there's very few bailouts. We have Dave here tonight from Modern Plumbing. No one's showing up at his door to say, hey, you have any business problems? Let's give you some money. But in this case, certainly we see with FIGA, we fund it and then they give it out. The insurer goes off, keeps the good policies and turns all the bad ones in to FIGA, who honestly doesn't pay that well. So my clients end up still with not enough for what they need. And one thing I want to mention too, for all the bills that went through in 21, 22, and 23, all these kept coming, not one of those bills required premium reduction for the benefits that were provided.
Right. It's just policy erosion and consumer right erosion with no benefit at all to the consumers, all benefit to the insurance companies alone. And again, that was for the $100 million gift that he was given before he signed the bill. And that's not why the people voted for him to put him in that place, not for personal gain. And as you saw, there was so much shenanigans going on that he passed a law that would allow him to stay at the governor's seat if he were to run for president, although the law just came into play in 2018. And the same leadership there today voted for in that favor, but then said, oh, it's just such an honor to have a governor that's running for president, and so we're going to keep him around.
And just to clarify with that, the law was passed in 2018 that said if you're going to run for president, run for some higher office, you had to resign your existing post. So when he decided to run for president, all of a sudden, They literally went in and revoked the law, only been in effect for a few years, and they revoked it like on a Monday, and Tuesday he announced he was going to run.
Right. It's just the same way that before he had that incident in Georgia and caused all that chaos there. For instance, because before he got all that money to run for president, he also signed into law that one of his cronies pushed through very quickly without anybody knowing that he doesn't have to show the expenses that he has or the cabinet, therefore. Yep. So he can just freely spend the state of Florida's money without anybody knowing.
And only got caught because of the car accident in Tennessee, where it was revealed that everyone with him were all Florida State employees, the police and things like that, who were working out of state on the company, on the state's dime, on our dime, to go with him while he was running for president.
Right. Which is still weird that Iowa has 99 counties. I still can't get over that. But we paid for him to go and do every single county there in Iowa, as we had an absentee governor who just does whatever the insurance company wants. And that's not who we need in office. We need somebody that's gonna do what the people want them to do.
Well, we need someone who's going to hold the insurers accountable. Also, it's kind of this fear mongering of if you don't do what we want, we're going to leave. Well, they did that in 2010. To Charlie Crist, and they said, if you don't let us make our own Florida companies, we're going to leave. And I think Charlie at that point was just like, okay, well, have your own company. And so we did, and that seemed to quiet things, even though nothing really happened. But again, a lot of it's just an issue of timing. You have certain insurers like Avatar, who came on not that long before Hurricane Irma, and that was a big storm. Right. They weren't heavily funded. The state does not require a lot of capital to fund an insurance company.
And they fought like heck. You know?
And they fought everything. They didn't pay anything. I mean, they're going out of business. But a lot of the newer other ones that have come on since then, the Slides, the Tip Taps, the Kins, a lot of those have come on and have done okay because they had better funding and I think better management. And They still survive to this day. We certainly know the folks at Slide are the same folks from Heritage who know how to run a company. And they've survived all these things. Yet the crisis is really not of insurance. It's a crisis of either proper management or the state requiring more appropriate funding to make sure they can weather the storm.
Right.
No pun intended, I guess.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and of course, the state funded and backed Citizens Insurance. You shouldn't be able to, in the past when it first opened, you weren't able to get Citizens Insurance unless you had 3 strikes, you're out. Yeah. And now they're just giving it out like hotcakes. I think they have up to 1.4 million policies.
They are down to 970,000. Back in October, they sent out about 300,000 letters to depopulate Citizens, which is their statutory obligation to do. Yeah. So basically, they went around and they got primarily Slide, the Bruce Lucas from the Heritage fame, but primarily they went out and got everybody to write them quotes that were, I think, like 15%, because it's 20% for Citizens to get with them. Right. They had all these insurers write quotes about 15% or 5% less than Citizens. And they're forcing everybody to get out of Citizens, which is, in all honesty, good for the consumer. There's nothing about Citizens that is a positive other than for a time it was their premium structure was certainly better. But they keep raising rates also, so you're going to end up being with a private insurer. You're going to get better service. You're going to get better attention. They may still not run things how we would all choose, but when Citizens has no bad faith on risk, they can do whatever they want. And literally,
with no penalty.
There's no penalty, at all, which is unbelievable. Even at the state level, that they don't have any obligation to do the right thing at all.
Right. And speaking of getting in the doo-doo,
Yes.
we do have Dave here with Modern Plumbing. He's our guest today. Here at the Contractor Talk, we love to have guests on here to talk to you, the consumer. And as it relates, we talk a lot about insurance-related claims and property damage and such. Before the show, we just get to know you, Dave. And one question I asked you before we came in here is about those pesky cast iron plumbing that folks still have in their home or business, and it causes a lot of issues, and even indoor quality issues that we find out when we do VOC testing when somebody has headaches and you're finding out that it's not mold, it's not a different indoor quality problem. Sometimes it's from like the adherent that they put on these cast iron plumbing lines, and then you have problems with them just breaking, and it's terrible. And folks don't know about that. So, but I'd love to hear about yourself and your business, and let's talk some cast iron stuff too, man. I'm so interested in that.
Well, thanks for having me. So cast iron has been a thing that, as we had customers calling because they thought they had a problem because they heard advertisements that, you could go after your insurance company if you had cast iron under your house. But for a customer that just has a problem, cast iron deteriorates. It's being corroded from the inside and the out. And when it does, it what we call it is a zipper in the bottom of the pipe. The bottom of the pipe just disappears. So when that happens, it's leaking in the ground, but it's not enough to usually cause a water problem. But you can get a sewer odor in a house. We perform smoke tests, and we put smoke into the sanitary system to see where it comes out. And concrete is porous. It is porous. It lets gas out, and it.
So does smoke come out of the toilets or something, or where does it come out of?
So it comes out of wherever. So you could hang a picture on the wall right there and hit a vent pipe, and we can put smoke in the system under pressure, and we can see it come out of the wall and go, there's a leak in that wall somewhere.
Now, what are your thoughts on that pipeline cover, or whatever they call it, or the pipe liner, or whatever?
So
I've heard something about it. I just don't know if that applies to this type of plumbing line.
Yeah, there's a way to line the pipe. There's several different ways. We personally still feel that it's better to replace it with solid PVC.
Is that probably because the pipe in the house is small, like too small to make it an inline effective, or?
No, if there's nothing left of the pipe, though, you're putting in something that you're then adding air to expand and hope that it sticks to what was left of the existing pipe. There is a better way of doing it, that where they hone the pipe down and they spray a 2-part epoxy that becomes hard as a rock. And I've actually seen on the shore where the pipe has crumbled on vertical stacks when they go to demo an apartment or a condo, and it's still structurally in place.
Now, what years did they use cast iron pipe, give or take?
It goes back to the early days of plumbing, starting in like the 20s, packed and poured with lead and oakum.
And so when did they kind of end the primary use of cast iron in Florida?
So ABS plastic, the black plastic, started in the 60s, 70s, even though it was used in Europe sooner, and then PVC became predominant in the 80s for sure. You started to see.
And where did gray pipe fall within that? There was a time of the gray pipe crisis, pipes exploding in walls.
So that's the water piping, and that's gray polybutylene.
Okay.
And the pipe itself really wasn't as much the problem as a lot of the fittings, but that was once again kind of a national lawsuit and Shell, and a lot of it got a bad name, even when I can take you to houses right now that have no leaks and will hold a pressure test and are fine. But no insurance company will insure poly. Of course, nowadays we get letters from customers that they want us to check everything in their house and confirm that there's no poly, and then they want dates on PEX, which PEX is kind of like the new poly, and that it's a flexible, soft pipe.
Because I have PEX in my house. When I bought my house, before we owned it, it had, I guess, just regular old copper, and I assumed the copper was getting holes in it and starting to pin leak out. So is PEX a good, like I said, I got miles of PEX in my house, so I hope you can tell me it's a good product.
Once again, there's so many different PEX products out there, too. So I could go over pros and cons
coming
of them.
to my house, I think.
yeah, check that out for sure. And so tell us a little bit about your business. We are in the Central Florida area, so if you are listening and you do need a quote from a plumber, or you have a service related issue, he's the guy to call at Modern Plumbing. So give us your, I guess, just the services, I guess, that's mostly ordered, that I guess a common thing that a homeowner would call you about, and how to get in contact with you.
Okay, from a homeowner side, every time the house is sold, if it has poly, we get a call for a repipe estimate. So we have residential service techs that basically everything's kind of flat rate. We try to go out to be able to give pricing up front. Come to your house, how many bathrooms, are there any difficult areas, and kind of to give a price.
How much attic space you have? Because you run everything in the attic now, right?
So if there's if it's a flat roof, that's a problem. Sometimes we have to dig around to the other side of the house because we can't go across an attic. You get an island kitchen that I can't run the pipes down a wall to an island kitchen. We've got to open the floor sometimes.
I'm curious. I was going to think about, because obviously the water used to, under pressure, still wasn't pushing up, and now we go up through the attic. Do you ever have to put some sort of pump or something to keep pressure up, or is that the city's got enough oomph in it? Or
there's an you've got a 2-story house, and water still flows fine to a 2-story.
Okay.
When we do commercial buildings, you don't usually see booster pump packages needed unless it's over 4, 5, 6 floors.
Oh, okay.
So the difference is the flow, it's traveling further to get somewhere. Hot water might take longer to get there. And then with PEX, there is insert fittings that if you have a lot of fittings, instead of having the smallest being a 1/2-inch pipe, now you're going through 3/890s, and you can see kind of a pressure drop. When you first turn it on, there's pressure, and then it kind of slows down. So there's other PEX products that expand around fittings so that it's the full nominal size.
It's interesting because at my house, we have a wet bar area, and the water comes out of that wet bar like Niagara Falls, and 6 feet away from it is like a half bath, and the water comes out. It's fine, but it comes out. Like wildly less. And I always stop and I go, what turn has this thing taken to have a gusher at the bar, and 6 feet away the sink in the half bath is just a mild. Like you're washing your hands, you got your hands going, you're like, come on, baby, let's get that soap off, let's go.
It's like trying to rinse a toothbrush when it's barely coming out.
So I can't figure out why that would, I'll ask you, why would my bar have great pressure and 6 feet away my sink doesn't?
The faucet?
Really?
Usually it is the faucet. So kitchen faucets are allowed to have more flow. It's all limited. It goes back to Ralph Nader and conservation, and 3.5-gallon toilets down to 1.6, much less faucets, shower heads, to conserve water. So, but kitchens and an older bar faucet can definitely flow 2.5 gallons a minute. And if you've got a newer lavatory faucet in your bathroom, it could be under a gallon. It could be 0.6 now. So.
We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, I see a service visit coming very soon.
Well, yeah, because you go, how can that be? How can that be? So, okay.
Right. So that would be your most common, I guess, request is maybe a repipe?
Well, we do a lot of that. Water heaters. The thing I always say about plumbing is you don't realize how much you rely on it until all of a sudden it's not working, and nobody.
Or you don't get hot water.
Nobody budgets for it, but they kind of want to take a hot shower and.
Yeah, and a couple of years ago, we actually had to replace we kind of redid the whole house. So I replaced the water heater, and the cool thing is that it has a heat pump in it that blows cold air into my garage.
I have one in my house.
And it does it. Like, it's not kidding. Like, you go out in the garage, even in not so much summertime, but in the spring, and you walk out and you feel that cold air blowing into your garage, no extra charge.
No kidding.
It's also 300% efficient because it's using the amount of electricity that your refrigerator does. If you go to Home Depot and you look at the yellow tags on a water heater is $400 a year, yet a refrigerator is $160. It's using that same type of compressor technology.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. And before we end this part of the show for the break, go ahead and give your contact number out for you in case somebody wants to reach you.
So Modern, we're going into our 50th year now. Family founded company in Motor Springs, 407-327-6000.
Awesome. Excellent. If you're listening tonight and you have a question, whether it relate to whether it be on a legal question or for a plumber, then now's your time.
Yeah.
Give us a call here at 407-774-TALK. All right, we're going to take a break here at Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. We'll be back with our guest Dave with Modern Plumbing, and I love how this music gets more intense as we come to the break. We'll be right back. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell.
You are now listening to Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell.
All right. We're back. Contractor Talking with Richie Kidwell. On that quick break there, we're already back, and glad to be here with you guys. If you're in the listening area right now, give us a call, 407-774-TALK. We're in the big studio tonight. We're on a new station, which I'm excited about. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell was normally before, it was podcast-based, and we're on our website, contractortalkpodcast.com, and on YouTube. Subscribe to us there, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Love that. We're there not only or on the internet, but we're here live for you guys here in the Central Florida area, 94.9 FM and 950 AM. And so we're going to replay this again on our YouTube page for you to come back and listen to anytime, and also on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you can stream, you'll be able to hear the audio of the show here and every Monday night, starting at 7 p.m. All right, so we're just talking about plumbing here with Dave at Modern Plumbing, and it's exciting to know. Really good for me because we have a lot of questions for you, not only just Hans and I, but I imagine though that with many of the folks coming to you for either repipes or for service, like the hot water tanks like we talked about. The question I have, and I just switched over to the what do they call it, the tankless
instant hot or something.
Yeah, and the instant hot water tank. Now, what do you think about that versus the getting a bigger tank, having multiple tanks or whichever it is? Because the thing that bothers me the most is that you turn it on and like you literally walk away for 5 minutes and come back and it's finally hot, but then it stays forever. So like. What is your thoughts on the tankless hot water versus the hot water tanks?
Is it gas?
Oh.
Or is it electric?
Oh, boy.
Because I have a completely different opinion on.
Shoot, I do have gas for the hot tub, and is it hooked into that? So I don't know. I think it's electric.
A gas tankless heater basically is unlimited hot water. The difference being it's got to be sized correctly. So if you've got like a large tub that you're filling, the outlet temperature and the inlet temperature dictates how slow or fast the water flows through it. So that's the only downside compared to a storage tank. The pressure and volume and flow of your house through a storage tank is going to stay the same. Running through a tankless heater, whether it's electric or gas, if multiple people are using hot water in the house and you don't have multiple tankless heaters, the only way it reaches the outlet temperature, if it's set at 120 or higher, is to slow down the flow. So the downside of a tankless is, unless you have multiple heaters, bigger houses that we do, we can have four heaters, and we can have separate zones on different ends of the house. As far as electric goes, they're getting better at it, but I've just found that the amount of electricity that it takes when you do use the hot water, and then how often they break down and the cost of the elements that are in them, a heat pump to me is a better solution because it's much more efficient for sure, and you still got the volume and no pressure difference. If you've got gas and you put in 2, if that's what you need, you don't have the flow issue. You literally have unlimited hot water. I mean, because you can't run out. So even with a hybrid, you can keep it higher, you can size it larger, but if you've got company coming for the holidays right now, and everybody's taking showers to get ready to go out to church or something, you can run out of hot water, even with a larger storage tank.
Somebody's showering, somebody's taking a bath in the pool, Richie. Sounds like you.
That's definitely me.
I know we did it at our place. I know my wife always wants hot water. Same thing. We're as far away from the water heater as possible. The water heater's in the garage other than the house. And she would turn on the water and walk away. And it started just to make me nuts. Because she would go and then she like start doing something, and the water would 10, 12, 15, and I'm like, hey, 15 minutes later she go, oh, I forgot to turn the water on. So I got a 2 on Amazon. I had a plumber install it though. I got a 2-gallon electrical heater, just enough so when she turns it on, it's hot right away. She can wash her face, do whatever she has to do, but that's all it's meant to do, is just to give her hot water. So that way when she turns it on, she can't walk away. It's hot right away and only lasts so long. But we've done that, and that.
Good temporary fix, so she can get the hot water right now, especially if it's short term, because that's sometimes you just need to wash your face, your hair, whatever.
Just when she's ready for bed and she wants to have hot water. So we did that. I had a plumber put it in, and man, that thing's been great.
So when I went to Costa Rica, we the showers there, it's all cold water basically, but they have this attachment that they put on it, and it's just like it's just that it has like a heating coil in it or whatever, and it's like an aftermarket piece, so to speak, and it just, like I said, fits right on top of the shower head. And
it's like a cord that runs to it, like it's a
and they run it like a pipe kind of right over top of it and down, and it has a little box over the sides. You can kind of see what the temperature says. It's all in Celsius. And then the math conversion was horrible for me. But but the same was true though, which is backwards for us Americans, right? Because we're used to, or if we don't have enough hot water, crank that sucker up, give me more hot water. Well, the trick was there. The guy told me, I was like, man, I couldn't get the hot water on. Or if I finally did, it was like lukewarm or whatever. And I was like, it's fine. It's hot here in Costa Rica anyways. But he's like, no, if you turn the pressure down more, then the less water flows over the heating elements and you get hotter water. I'm like, no kidding. So I turned the water down just where it's barely drizzling out. It was hot as hell. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Well, that's what I was describing about how it has to slow the flow in order to heat it. So a lot of commercial point of use water heater is just this little box under the sink, and you have to use a different aerator that comes with it that lowers the flow at the faucet. People go, there's no flow. I put a regular aerator on it. Now I don't have hot water. It's flowing through that little unit too fast. The element can't heat it. And in Europe, yes. In Europe, you typically see a water heater right in the bathroom, right on the wall, and you waste no water because it's right there. You can do an inline heater like you did, or you can do a recirc pump or a comfort pump to keep the loop hot on a timer. You know what hours you're using hot water at the kitchen or the bathroom, and there's other ways to do it so you're not wasting water.
One other thing we did, and this was somehow it was a job. The renovation had no budget, yet we somehow exceeded it. I had a plumber come over because I went to turn off the one of the toilet to put a new flap, whatever it's going to put a flapper in or something, and it didn't want to turn, and I was like, whoa! So I had a plumber come out and replace. My wife freaked out. Every valve in the house, like every one of them, and if I remember correctly, I can't remember which was. It was either make them into short throw valves, like 2 turns, or like I forget whatever he recommended I did. But he gave me the reasoning why. But if you have a valve that's stuck, my concern was in like one day the toilet would break. We'd go to turn it off in a flood, and it wouldn't be happening. So we replaced all of them. But what type of valve? The turnoff valve, is it? Again, it was some of the short throw, long throw, multiple turns, few turns.
So the quarter turn valves can be a problem because you never use them, and they sit there in the open position. And I'm not really a fan of those either. The bigger problem is the type of connection. So all the plastic piping that's CPVC that's glued should be a glued-on valve. And the compression valves that were used on copper is what you're going to see on most houses. They went ahead and just compressed it so they're not waiting for glue to dry when they're trimming out the house. The problem with that, or any valve, is when it's tight because it hasn't been operated, you've got to back it up. Like I hold it with one hand while I'm turning the handle with the other, because we get people that install new appliances or want to repair a toilet, and they just go to turn the valve off, and just the action of trying to turn it in the right direction, it can break in the wall, and we get a lot of calls for that.
Or the opposite could be true. If there's no water running through it, you do the repair, turn the water on, call it like a water hammer or something like that. I guess it just rush of water pressure comes from it, and just either bust a weak 90 or a what'd you call it when they kind of compress them together?
Compression fitting.
Yeah, the compression fittings, we've seen them where we just turn the water off to the house and we turn it back on and the valve flies off. It just, so number one, plumbers, when we turn the water on, we turn it on slow and let it pressurize slowly. We don't fully turn the water back on. gives us a chance to make sure that nothing started leaking,
Yeah.
and it also doesn't stress an older piping system.
I remember my old house. Apparently, I have a lot of plumbing issues I never realized. We used to have water hammer at our old house. We put a bunch of those things in line, and that pipe still would bang in the walls. You hear it, it goes rattle or bang, and no matter what we did, we could really never get rid of it. When again with compressors or suppressors, whatever they had, you put in line. What is water hammer? That noise.
So hammer arresters are used, is what it's called, and they're actually required by code now, or have been for quite a while, for anything that's a solenoid valve, an electronic valve. So your washing machines, your dishwasher, your ice maker, because it turns the water off so fast. That's what creates water hammer. The water's trying to catch up, it's flowing, and all of a sudden you immediately shut it off. Well, as it catches up, it hits a dead end, and that's the hammer that you get. Yep. So the hammer arresters can help. Repipes, one of the things you got to make sure of before the walls get patched, and we have a guy that does a beautiful job patching. Aaron is just amazing. You can't tell where we cut any holes, but we got to make sure the pipes are supported just right, because they also can't be too tight. You get people all the time, they think there's a drip in the ceiling. I can hear this little drip, drip, drip. And that could be expansion ticking from a pipe being over-tightened. As it heats up with hot water, it starts to expand against whatever it's banded to, and it can start ticking. So there's a fine line on supporting the pipes, too.
Unbelievably, I had one of those, too.
You had a tick in the wall?
Because when all my kids, most of my kids have moved out and are going to college, but when both of them would use the two sinks in the upstairs bathroom, like I was sitting downstairs and I go, and you start, and my wife, what are you doing? I'm like, there's something in the wall. And we went and I ended up finding it, and I'm going to getting a little camera. We're punching through, looking for leaks, same kind of thing. I said, it's dripping. I know it's dripping. And we figured out, like I said, it was something like the PVC expanding or whatever it might have been. But then when the kids went off to college, and I never had to take I was going to cut the whole wall up because I can't have it do that. But since I went to college, I was able to avoid that project. But I had the same thing, and it would drive me crazy and it would get loud, like the tick. It was like if you're sitting in the living room, you'd be like.
I've had customers get irate and want to argue with me. I know there's a leak. You can't tell me there's not a leak. I've heard it.
Yeah, we did.
Wow. And when we started the show, we were talking about the cast iron lines, going back to most consumers don't know this, because we were just talking about when they converted, to PVC and CPVC pipe plumbing and such. Before that, they used these cast iron lines, these plumbing lines that are now eroding, getting rusted. You called it a zipper later on, which makes sense. If you have a plumbing line that runs underground and the whole bottom falls out, eventually it just kind of rust away down the line like a zipper, and so just slowly eroding away, and that'll eventually cause, or maybe you have it's enough water saturation that it might have roots grow through it and attract that kind of stuff. Then you get blockages. What do you do? And most of the time, some of the folks that we've had to help out, we were able to do a full inspection and a camera evaluation to go down and say, okay, where's the break, what type of break it is, do the whole video, pictures and such, and then also offer the measurements for the trenching proposal, so you can turn that in if you're a client to your insurance company for reimbursement. And Hans, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they pay, if it ends up being a valid claim, then I think they pay for everything except for the access.
Well, historically in our HO3 policy, you had what's called ensuing loss, where if you had a break in a pipe, they would pay for the removal of the flooring, removal of the concrete, and then the replacement of those materials, but you had to pay to fix the break itself. So basically, if you had like a 12-inch piece of PVC or let's say whatever it might have been, you have to pay for the repair, but they would pay to put everything back to how it was. Several years ago, because insurers don't like paying those claims, because they claim people were doing things to try to get a free new kitchen, they have now an LWD, a limited water endorsement, which typically limits your recovery for those types of losses to $10,000, no matter what.
Now, would they consider that a water damage loss if your plumbing line had a zipper in it?
Well, I mean, obviously the cast iron pipe litigation has been going on now for many years and will continue to go on for many years. But yes, they would say that the LWD would apply. So many of the cases that I saw that had substantial damage became limited by litigation regarding the limited water again endorsement that limited that loss to $10,000 no matter what. And there were some ways to get around that here or there, but over time, what you find is that the better work that I did or guys like me did to hold them accountable, they would go back and go, okay, we lost that case to Hans. We got to change the policy now. And they would take the court ruling, like American Integrity did with the 14-day rule.
Oh, I'm so mad about that.
Like that kind of, there's a policy provision in a regular homeowners policy that typically says, and used to not say this, just so we're all clear. It used to say if a loss was hidden within the walls, ceilings, or walls, floors, or ceilings, they would cover it. They took that out, and then now say if a leak, essentially, I'll just summarize. If a leak occurs for more than 14 days, they don't owe any money for it. The ruling came back from the courts that the insurer owed days 1 through 13, and then after 14, they were allowed to not pay.
Right.
And as hard as it may be to discern the damage between day 1 and 13 and 14 on, it still gave, because most of the damage occurs in the first couple of days.
Right, absolutely
when
does.
the
During the
water-
migration, and then it's going to rot out the building material. Now, and that's interesting, right? Because a lot of that damage that happens through day 1 to 13 overlaps the damage in total.
Right. And so what happened was, we won that at the appellate level. American Integrity went back the next year after the opinion and said, we don't cover it from day 1. So they literally just went, okay, the law says X. Okay, we're going to do exactly what the law says. What we owe, we're going to extract out by contract. So we do see that. And it's interesting, there's a term in insurance policies called, they don't cover inherent vice. And I never knew what that meant until I thought about cast iron pipe.
Oh, I thought that was Miami Vice's like spring off or something. No?
The reboot was inherent vice. It's about a dirty cop. But what happened was, when you put a piece of iron in the ground, it immediately begins to degrade. And inherently, it literally eats itself. It destroys itself on its own. That's the only time I've ever found that to apply. But yeah, so on cast iron pipe, we've done a lot of that litigation. And the LWD has helped quell some of that, because the limitations on recovery are really so limited now, no matter what type of loss you might have, including black water or overflow toilets. A lot of things are now limited by that $10,000.
That's wild.
Well,
And
Richie, you were dead on as far as we keep a camera on every truck, and we have the camera and see how bad it is. But cast iron, as it gets rough, it can get barnacle looking on the inside. And with low flow toilets now, water doesn't help solids travel as far. Now it's going on a rough surface, and then it's got a zipper. So it's not as much that it's leaking as that it's clogging all the time. It's a constant source of clogs, and that's why we have to be careful even putting cameras in those lines, because the zippers will eat the cameras, and sometimes we've had to leave the camera until we do open the floor because we can't get it back out.
Right. Oh man, and those are expensive.
Extremely
cameras.
expensive, about $8,000 for
Oh my goodness!
I was going to say the best one we could find, the best price one we can find is between $5,000 and $6,000, and that's because we know them people. It's like,
Right.
Yeah.
My
Oh, wow.
God. It's yeah. So, but man, it's great. It has video and audio. So when you're going down there, you can hear it. You can hear my guys laughing up above it, and you can hear them like as it goes through, and you'll see where the clog is or root is or whichever. A lot of times it's a clog or again it's rooting systems mostly,
Right.
or you'll just see it's just a like a pit of rust and then just a bunch of just a bunch of brown, and just like, man, it's just now it's filled with dirt, and it just clogs right there.
And Dave, not to take money out of your pocket, but is there anything people need to do to it's like a roof? How do you maintain your roof? You really can't. You make sure you get the gutters clear. But is there something I know for
Wastewater.
like my air conditioning line? I got to get vinegar and hot water. And is there anything people could?
100%. So wasting water because of the low flow toilets. So we got houses that have brand new PVC, and bathrooms that don't get used that often, that the paper and solids go a certain amount of distance and stop. And then it sits there until the next time it's used, and it dams up just like a beaver making a dam. So wasting water is the solution when there's nothing wrong with the piping itself. Higher flow toilets, I mean, we've got, as plumbers, we've got some toilets that we prefer that may not look as nice as the one that your wife picks out, but we would talk function on things like that. And as far as maintenance, I couldn't tell you, people that take showers every day, once a month when you clean the bathroom, filling the tub or the shower, cleaning the hair out of the drain and filling it up and letting it go. And then, yes, my bathroom sinks, I use baking soda and vinegar. And I keep them clean because shaving cream, everything, toothpaste, it builds up on the side of the pipe.
Those don't react with each other? Science.
Oh yeah. You can make a little volcano in your sink, but it does work great.
That sounds like fun then.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it was a science experiment. But yeah, I mean, if you are, and mostly it's up to about, we say about 1975, up to about that point. If you live in a home that was built 1975 or before, you may have these cast iron plumbing lines, and it might not be now, but if you do have a problem with it, then it may be something you want to get looked at, and it may be covered in your policy of insurance if you have an HO3 policy, if it does get clogged. Now, you would have to actually have a backup. Isn't that right, Hans, of some sort?
You have to have some form of damage. The backup alone doesn't do it, but the damage can simply be the soaking of drywall. Really, almost anything would qualify on a backup. But if it's just running slow, that is not a claim because it doesn't cause any damage. There's still a requirement of some physical damage to the home resulting from the backup.
Right. Okay. And so if you're in that, then, I imagine, do you guys do at Modern Plumbing, is there anything that you can tell to our guests that if they have a problem, do you offer a first-time consumer discount or anything that you would say, yeah, we'll do some sort of investigation or some sort of like free quote or something like that? What is your pitch to consumers?
So we have the Modern Value Plan, $87.50 a year. Kind of like air conditioning, just a basic checkup. AC guys started it. We do the same thing.
$87. I was going to say a month, and I was going to be like, that's not too bad.
So once a year to become a member, that's what you pay. And it basically, we come out to renew your policy. We send letters out and let you know that it's up for renewal. A lot of times people use it because when you're a member, everything that has a flat rate price is 15% less. So when you're getting something done anyway, it just makes sense to be a member. But then, hey, in a year, renew it. We come out, we do a walkthrough, just look at everything, make sure we don't see anything that's getting ready to happen.
That's included in that $87?
That $87.50 is for us to come back the next year when you renew it, just to do a basic walkthrough and visual inspection. And then as far as what we were talking about with, it's a shame, but I see people that buy an existing home that has just been fixed up and the cast iron shot underneath the house. My biggest recommendation to all my friends in the real estate business is, get the underground sewer inside and outside of the house scoped before anybody buys it, just so that it's in fair shape.
Yeah, because it's not cheap to replace all of your plumbing lines. Is that right?
You said $10,000, and $10,000 for a 2-bath house with the kitchen and a laundry spread out a little bit. It's hard to stay under that, even before you think about the concrete and the finished floor surfaces.
Right.
Wow. And it sounds like you have folks in your company that does the drywall repair. So if you do have to break into the drywall, you're a one-stop shop. If that's the case. So
we work with licensed subcontractors for concrete removal and reinstatement. When we do that, we've got to do pre-treat with somebody that's licensed to do that for termites. Yep. And then we have, because we do so many repipes, we have a subcontractor that does all of our patching and matches whatever the texture is. He matches it. He's amazing.
Yeah, and you handle all of that. It's all included. It's all included in your quote and scope.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So we try to always include everything that we can, but more importantly, spell out anything that's not included. Like if you needed an electrician to run something and you didn't want us to cover it, try to make sure that you need that too.
Right. Awesome. And I mean, I imagine you get into some of that crossover as well with what you do, because I think it's all, when you're on a construction site, it's like, okay, you have one scope, and then all of a sudden it gets bigger. Can I handle that? Sure. So is that what other scopes do you handle outside of that?
What about, like, if I have a regular good old fashioned, what I call just a pipe break? I assume people can call you and you come out and you'll shut it down. Do you guys do the remediation part, or the suck the water out and dryers?
So we don't do that. We have companies that we bring in if it's our mistake. We usually tell people to talk to their insurance company, because these days, I forget the term you just used, but insurance companies are getting really good about telling them after they've paid somebody else to come dry out their house that they had to use the one that the insurance company would have sent.
Yes.
So we usually, if it gets to a point where that needs to happen, I think the insurance company does need to get a call from the owner to find out what they're going to cover in that regard. So we don't do that in-house. But I mean, as a rule, we're a commercial construction company building hospitals, schools, hotels, and then service division doing every bit of residential, commercial, and industrial. And yes, fixing pipes and fixing them. We have guys 24/7. We have to have guys on call because it doesn't always happen at a convenient time. So
it never does. It's always like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Or
we try and
Friday night.
schedule the stuff that we can during the week for you and our guys to have a life. But yeah, there are emergencies that come up, and we try to keep a pretty well-stocked truck to fix just about anything.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just like your AC. It's always when you get home Friday night, go out to dinner, and you come back and your AC's not working. Same thing. You come home, it's always on the weekend. You're fooling around Saturday morning, and there goes the plumbing. It's like, oh crap, And so, yeah, I can imagine you guys work 24/7 in these emergency cases.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So thank you again. And one more time, how do we contact you if you're listening here and you want to have that's a great, having an annual policy plan with you. It's a 15% discount. And does it give any other benefit, like maybe same day type of service or next day?
Priority. So if you're an MVP member and our dispatchers got other customers that are calling in that aren't, you get priority. You also don't pay any overtime. So the flat rates that we use, it's the same price whether it is overtime or not. It's not a different charge.
Well, because most people like myself, you don't think about your plumbing, like you said, till it doesn't work. Or, so that kind of thing that kind of reminds you to, if you remind them that you're going to come out, that's a great deal.
Yeah, I would walk around and say, okay, this bothers me, that bothers me. Like put up like one of those pumps, or that what did you call it? It's like a circulator that kind of keeps circulating the water as you're going, so it can have hot water on demand. I'd be all over that. So, but how often do you have a plumber in your house going, okay, that annoys me, give me a quote. You know, every time they come out, I'd find something else for them to do for sure. So that's amazing. I'm definitely going to be a client myself. And again, one more time, how do we get a hold of you?
So we have a great website. You can just look up Modern Plumbing, and our website shows a lot of our services. Our phone number is 407-327-6000. Answered live, including Saturday, but after hours we have an answering service that goes right to our on-call technician if it's an emergency.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. I'm your host, Richie Kidwell. And Hans, to end us, how do we get a hold of you, my brother?
407-782-0258. 407-782-0258 is my cell phone.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. I keep forgetting you can't cuss on the show. But anyways, thank you guys for listening. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Talk to you next week. See ya.